Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's lecture in English 111, College Rhetoric. This week we will be discussing how to read critically and think analytically, and also we'll be discussing your next project, which is the genre of the review. So let's first start with critical reading. What exactly is critical reading? Well, it incorporates several components. First, critical reading asks us to analyze a text closely through cultural, ethical, and political perspectives. This entails asking insightful and challenging questions, figuring out why people believe some things and are skeptical of others. It also asks us to evaluate the reasoning, authority, and emotion of a text while contextualizing it and analyzing that text based on our own beliefs and assumptions. Now, we often look through a text. We look at the words or the images to figure out what an author is saying, and this is primarily a strategy that is concerned with the content itself, not necessarily the organization, style, or the medium of the text. We can also look at a text, which asks us to explore why an author made particular choices, which might include the genre, decisions about content, organization, style, medium, and design, persuasion strategies, which include the use of reasoning appeals to authority and appeals to emotion. We also might look at style and diction, the uses of specific words and phrasing, which might include metaphors, irony, specialized terms, sayings, and/or profanity. Now, to read critically, we want to incorporate a little bit of both. It's a process that involves moving back and forth between looking through a text and looking at it. We want to know what a text says, but we also want to know why it says it. Ultimately, it helps us better understand the cultural, ethical, and political influence that shaped the writing of the text. So, thinking analytically, and reading critically incorporates several strategies. And the first one is to preview the text itself. And this might include you looking at the title and the subtitle of the text, who the author is, how the chapters and headings are laid out, what, if any, visuals are included, and of course, what is the purpose, genre, and our initial response to this text. The second strategy asks us to play the believing doubting game. You first want to imagine you're on board with what the author is saying, that you are all gung-ho, and then you want to imagine that you're a harsh critic who is deeply skeptical of everything that the author is saying. Then, to formulate your own response, you'll want to synthesize the two. A third strategy is to annotate the text. This includes highlighting and putting little notes in the margin. It also asks you to maybe take notes regarding the text. What questions does it answer? What questions does it leave you with? Strategy 4 asks us to analyze the proofs. The proofs consist of 3 different appeals. The first appeal could be how does the author appeal to authority or ethos? How does the author appeal to reasoning or logic or logos? And finally, how does the author appeal to emotion or pathos? How does this author present each of these appeals? It's important to remember that almost all texts use a combination of these 3. Strategy 5 asks us to contextualize the text. First thing about contextualization is you want to look up, what kind of cultural references that the author was working with, where they were living at the time of writing the text. Ethical contextualization asks us what specific rights, legalities, or issues of fairness are being addressed in the text. And finally, what is the political contextualization? What are the political tensions or conflicts that were occurring when the author wrote the text, and how might that have influenced the author's response? Strategy 6 asks us to analyze our own assumptions and beliefs. How did your first reaction influence your overall interpretation of the text? How did your personal beliefs influence your interpretation and reaction? Why were you pleased or irritated with that particular text? And finally, have my views changed regarding a particular topic after reading that text? The final strategy is to respond to the text. Was your initial response accurate? How does this text meet your purposes? How well did the text follow the genre and genre expectations? And should you reread the text? Now for your next assignment, you're going to be asked to write a review. And review, with a capital R, is your password for this week's reading response. Reviews are a good way to figure out and explain why something was successful or not. Reviews are written about a number of things, including movies, books, products, services, performances, and of course other things. They help readers understand the strengths and the limitations of what is being discussed. Reviews offer us an opportunity to express our informed opinion, and this opinion must be based on common expectations. Remember, it's important that you formulate opinion, but it should be also based on the shared assumptions that you have with your readers. Some of the things you might want to ask yourself about a particular product, service, or performance when you are creating your review are what are known as the reporter's questions. Who wrote, developed, or produced your particular product or performance? What is the genre of your subject, and what are the expectations that go along with that genre? When was it created? Where does it exist, or where were the scenes set? Why was it created? For what purpose? And of course, how was it made? What's the medium? Your successful reviews will first include, of course, an introduction. This introduction identifies the subject being reviewed and offers some background information on it. Next, you'll move into a description, or a brief summary of the subject. Then, there is, of course, a discussion. This determines whether the subject meets, exceeds, or falls short of common expectations. And finally, you'll have a conclusion that offers an overall judgment of the subject. Again, be sure to look over all of our directions for this week and make sure that you have got together your rough drafts and respond to your peers, and submit your final draft by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Of course, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to either post them to discussion board or to email me directly. Have a great week.